Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our first Women's Network program of 2022. Yay. I'm Susan Penta, and I am the new chair of the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce Women's Network Advisory Board. I'm also co-founder and managing partner at my own firm called Meteor. I'd like to start by helping to virtually introduce everyone that's attending today. I hope you take advantage of the chat function, say hello, share your thoughts throughout the program. But for questions, if you could enter any questions for our guest speakers in the Q&A feature, it's on the right-hand side of your screen. The program is being recorded and it'll be posted to our YouTube page next week. So once you see that there, share it, like it, and so forth. This is my first program as chair, I want to take a moment and just say I'm so honored to have the opportunity to work with the Chamber team and my amazing colleagues on the Women's Network Advisory Board to connect, inform, and lift up professional women and their male allies in Greater Boston. Hopefully I'm able to bring the voice of small business and entrepreneurship to this group today and in the coming couple of years. We hope moving forward into the spring that we're actually going to see all of your beautiful faces and bring the Women's Network back together in person so we can engage and connect and actually accelerate our recovery out of the pandemic. So we have a wonderful and inspiring panel of women entrepreneurs who will discuss their journeys to building their successful business and the challenges they've faced, and they've faced a few, and the importance of community engagement, investments in DEI, and so forth to get to where they are. I'm a longtime entrepreneur and small business owner, and so I know how important it is to uplift and support our female trailblazers and our local businesses, especially our women-owned minority businesses. With that, I want to offer a huge thank you to our Women's Network sponsor, MFS. It's really their support and partnership, and that's continued over the years that allows us to bring you this particular program today and helps the Women's Network succeed with these programs. And with that, I would like to welcome Michelle Thompson-Dolbury, Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for MFS. Thanks for joining us, Michelle. I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce today's speakers.
Thank you, Susan. I'm so excited to be here with all of you today. On behalf of MFS Investment Management, it's my pleasure to introduce today's panel of inspiring leaders. As we learn about each of their unique journeys, I believe we'll hear a common thread, one that female entrepreneurs and successful women share. And it's one that I hope all women can embrace, which is the ability to understand your individual strengths and play to them fearlessly. That's how we as women create opportunity rather than wait for it to come to us. But to have that conviction, the willingness to take the risks we know are essential to success, we must build a powerful, connected community together. And in that place where we support and elevate each other, appreciating what we bring to the table, that's where we're empowered to do so much more, whether we're building successful businesses or navigating a pandemic. That empowerment comes from knowing that your voice is valued and feeling a sense of inclusion and belonging. That's how MFS advocates for women and why we support organizations like the Women's Network. So now let me introduce our speakers. Joining us first is Anna Foster. Anna is the CEO and partner for a Maven's World lifestyle brand, Maven Women's Conference, as well as Cultural Solutions DEI Consulting. She also co-founded the Women's Dinner Group. Anna works with organizations on overall business consulting and strategy. She's a certified life and business coach and certified behavioral analyst trainer. Anna believes that no one should feel constrained by obstacles and borders, and she has a passion to help entrepreneurs and professionals live their best lives and gain success by living authentically. Welcome, Anna. Next, we have Hadley Douglas. Hadley is the co-founder and president of The Urban Grape, an award-winning wine store started in our own South End, recently winning the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's Small Business of the Year award. Hadley has a background in marketing, events, and philanthropic management. She founded Urban Grape with her husband, TJ, with a dedication to building community through beverages. She often speaks on the importance of inclusion and allyship in the workplace, as well as on women founders and entrepreneurship. Thank you for being here with us today, Hadley. And our next speaker is Nia Grace, a renowned restaurateur and co-founder of Boston Black Hospitality Coalition. She's the owner and operator of Daryl's Corner Bar and Kitchen, as well as the Underground Cafe and Lounge. As the co-founder of the Boston Black Hospitality Coalition, Nia works to preserve and ensure a prolonged future for Black-owned institutions that have been disproportionately impacted by the continuing COVID-19 pandemic. She's a respected leader, role model, and activist in the community, and also a past honoree for the Chamber's Pinnacle Awards for Emerging Executives. Thrilled to have you here today, Nia. And to lead off our conversation today, I'd like to welcome Donna Levin, CEO and CEO of the Arthur M. Blank School for Entrepreneurial Leadership at Babson College. Prior to joining Babson, Donna held faculty appointments at Harvard Business School and MIT Sloan School of Management, and served as the inaugural Executive Director of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Worcester Polytechnic Institute. Donna was also the co-founder of Care.com and VP of Operations at UPromise, an online service that helps families save for college that was acquired by Sallie Mae. Donna is passionate about guiding and mentoring students and working to build our future entrepreneurial leaders. We're truly honored to have you all here today, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. With that, I turn it over to you, Donna.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for those very warm introductions to the amazing panel. I am so excited for this conversation since I consider myself an entrepreneur who is masquerading as an academic. And I'm super excited because I think of small businesses as sort of the lifeblood of our country. When I think of Main Street, when I think of the community, I think of the impact that small businesses have, the jobs they create, and the way they all bring us together. Right before the panel started, we were taking a look at some data, and we actually had to cross-check it ourselves because I just couldn't believe the numbers. According to the SBA, 99.9% of the businesses in the U.S. are classified as a small business. And of those women-owned businesses in the U.S., 50% are owned by women of color and founded by women of color. I'm super excited about this panel, and you are representing the other 30.2 million small businesses across the country. So really want to get into the conversation and hear from each of you. I heard at the very beginning of the journey, before we start sort of peppering you with questions, that we were going to hear about each of your journeys. So I would imagine out there with us today, there are people who are either thinking, I have been to your restaurant, I went to your conference, I did a wine tour with you virtually during COVID, I want to understand your story, or I'm thinking about what comes next as we're all constantly rethinking, who we are, what we want to be when we grow up. And I'm wondering, how can I be on your journey? So I'm wondering if you guys could each just take a moment and share with us, how do you get started on this journey? And what continues to inspire you as you lead? And I'm going to ask you to kick us off, Anna.
Well, thank you, Donna, and thank you for the Chamber for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I'm born and raised in Boston, so I'm a Boston native. So Boston has always been very important for me. And entrepreneurship is one of those things that I just can't get away from. So speaking to all of you that are entrepreneurs and small business owners, I'm sure you understand what I mean. As Donna mentioned, I own and operated and have founded many businesses over my time. And a lot of it has just been based on the seasons that I am in my life. Even though I was born in Mattapan and raised in Mattapan, I went through the MECO program out in Marblehead. So I grew up in the inner city, but I also saw how other families lived in the suburbs of Marblehead throughout my years, through middle school and high school. And then I went on to Suffolk University and Suffolk Law School, also downtown Boston, and not seeing many people that looked like me in the classroom. So, even though my parents were very strong with regards to getting an education, which led me through, academia and law school. Entrepreneurship is one of those things that kept calling me back. And I think it was because I was always very passionate about just connecting with people and helping them and being a solution in their life. What I've learned through entrepreneurship and how to balance it with my own personal life is you can't be everywhere. So when I say my journey in entrepreneurship has been based really on my season in life and what I can give and add value to, it's one of those things that I'm committed to. And I'm also committed to helping other people in their journeys. So that's a little bit about my background on entrepreneurship, and I'm sure we'll get a little bit deeper in the conversation.
No, thank you, Nia. Thank you, Anna. I was going to say, can we hear from you, Nia?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. I think for me, it was about following my spirit. So a little bit, what Anna was saying as well, how I ended up here. I definitely have entrepreneurship in my family from my mother and my brother and my father. But I spent about 12 years in nonprofit management. And I did that because a part of me in that season for me, I wanted to use some of my talents to be able to help my community. And I worked with social service programs that I knew I could use my creativity. So for event planning and design, and even, a way of making appeals, because I did development work to call attention to valuable causes, but again, that really affected youth and families within the neighborhoods that I grew up in. But something was about, just kind of following that passion and led me back to Daryl's. I like to share the story that 12 years ago, or rather 10 years ago, I walked into Daryl's and I said, if I ever owned a place, I wanted to be just like this, never knowing that, 7 years later, I would work here and then actually have the opportunity to own it. And so it was really just a matter of really loving entertainment, hosting, and building community, and actually having a central place to do so. And so with the Daryl's as well as the Underground, it's my opportunity to kind of continue to follow that passion in my spirit.
No, thank you, Nia. And I definitely want to come back to you about the Underground. Hadley, please share your story with us.
Well, thank you so much, Donna, for having us here into the chamber. I too came from a really entrepreneurial family, and I think that I saw my father transition from working in a bank and a very traditional 9-to-5 job, leaving the house in the suit, to quitting that job and going out on his own and starting his own small business right at around the age 13. And it just made such a huge impact on me. I saw the struggle, but I also saw how much happier he was, and saw really the flexibility that it provided for our family. And I think that just got into not only into my blood, but my brothers are both entrepreneurs. And then basically fell in love with a guy who was also an entrepreneur and never wanted to work for anybody else. From the age of 6, he'd been doing his own little side hustles. So, there was really no other option for me. I pretty much have never had a corporate job. I've always started my own businesses in different areas. I really had a specialty in actually philanthropic marketing for professional athletes, which is about as niche as you can get, and was home on maternity leave with our second son when TJ came to me with the idea about opening the Urban Grape and asked me if I would do all the opening communications and press releases and copywriting for the website, in my spare time with 2 kids. And I don't know, that was 12 years ago. I just never looked back. We've been doing it together ever since.
All right. I'm also adding extreme multitasking next to my notes. I listen to you. I wanted to just go back for a minute. Nia, during your introduction and your story, you talked about following your spirit and youth and families and sort of, pursuing these opportunities. Can you talk about the power and the importance of supporting women and minority-owned businesses, as well as using the community as a resource, and how you continue to do that?
Absolutely. I think that for me, one of the things that as a woman, I've always found it a little bit harder to kind of believe in myself. I'm also in a fairly male dominated industry where, we're expected to maybe handle more of that admin piece and maybe not as be as firm and decisive when it comes to decision making and advancing a business in that particular way. But I feel like I've always had that spirit, and I really do credit a couple of my old corporate managers for empowering me in that way. One particularly from Volunteers of America. I love that gentleman because he said, listen, you've got what it takes. You're really going to outgrow this position. And I just advise you in any space, know everything from the bottom up, right? You want to know every single part and facet of the business, and you become indispensable. And so when I think about my time now here at Daryl's, it was the same thing. Daryl Settles hired me as his general manager. And in that position, I was in fact able to learn the full scope of the business. He really empowered me to understand what it looked like to not just be a manager in this company, but to also be an owner and understand negotiations and what it could look like to think long term. And with that, I believe that he saw some of the greatest success, when I was employed with him. And that kind of what, really invested into the, transfer of ownership when it came time for him to retire from this industry. And so I think sometimes where, I look in the mirror and I'm just like, I'm just a manager. I just, kind of make sure that the floor is operating and that the food is cooked and my staff is taken care of. I'm saying just because we sometimes put these qualifiers in front of it because we're scared to really just step out and say, no, I am the manager. I am the one who makes it. And sometimes you really just need that push and that word of encouragement that you got this. And that definitely comes from, men, women, anyone. And it really shows for me. I always say that sitting in this position now is because I never really saw anyone in this position before. And so I make it an opportunity. I'm actually really shy and things like this, I would prefer, just come by and see me and I'll talk to you. But I do this because I know that there's definitely someone out there who needs to hear this story and be able to look at me and relate.
Oh, Nia, so powerful. Thank you. So many for you. But it also made me reflect on Anna's career and what she just said about, first of all, I think you are more than a manager. I think of you as the CEO. You are amazing. And I'm hoping we can talk more about some of your experiences as we continue this conversation. Anna, earlier in your remarks, you said, you know what? You can't be everywhere. And really sort of focusing on your strengths. And that really resonated with me as an entrepreneur and reflecting on the fact that you have operated several businesses and how has sort of that passion ignited the way you approach your world of really supporting and guiding other entrepreneurs, as we just talked about, Nia having this great experience and a mentor.
Sure. And Nia, you made some amazing points. Thank you for that. So Donna, literally, I think with entrepreneurship, a lot of us are driven by passion and we want things to operate in an organic way. That's when we feel at our best. And we can do some really great work when we're doing it organically. So it's hard to say no. And so for me, I realized the power of no when it started to land at my doorstep in regards to challenges. Because if I didn't have those challenges, I would have continued to always say yes. But it wasn't it was as a detriment to myself when I was saying yes to everyone else, even though I didn't have the capacity to do those things that people needed me to do. So with regards to entrepreneurship and, running your own business and being passionate and being organic in your relationships and the actions of doing the work, it took me, I would say, probably a good 10 years in the last 10 years of just having strong mentors and really practicing mindfulness and really taking a good look in the mirror to see what capacity I could operate in. And when you just mentioned multitasking, it kind of made me cringe because I don't use that word anymore. I'm not a fan of it. And, we were really trained to use multitasking as a skill set when we actually can't give 10% to 10 things because we're only giving 10%. It doesn't add up. So that's when things come crashing down on you. So even though I knew that I was skillful and I had the ability, I didn't have the capacity to do so many things. So I had to step back in my journey. And now I am in the season that I'm in my life. Things have to add value, not just to my community, but it has to also be valuable to me. I'm not the person I was that was really interested in being everywhere and doing everything 10 years ago. So I have to really sit in things before I make a decision. Not only does it affect me personally, it also affects my family, and it also affects my clients or the community. So that's, the behind the scenes of entrepreneurship. And I do get involved in founding businesses and working with businesses that I'm passionate about, but I don't overcommit. So it's the undercommit and overdeliver season that I'll be in for the rest of my professional and personal journey. But I had to go through quite a few challenges. I don't say problems, I use the word challenges because words are powerful. And through mentorship and God, and also just the development. I'm a constant learner, reader. I listen to quite a few podcasts and I try to stay involved, but I do it on my own time. I don't like to be rushed. I don't allow people to rush me because I know myself and I know the environment that I operate best in. So that's how I'm able to wear these hats. Wear them, I would say, in a successful manner today, but it didn't always look like this. It was quite the journey.
Love that. So we heard that. All of us in multitasking, let's just strike that off. I wrote down undercommit, overdeliver, stay involved. And I, made a special note of myself on focus. And the fact that words have power. Hadley, I wanted to go back because I thought some of the powerful things and the words that you recently said, I was just writing down first. I was like, okay, father, okay, brothers, okay, spouse. I'm like, okay, so everyone's an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And we have just come through a season that was challenging for the world and especially challenging for entrepreneurs. So, congratulations on your U.S. Chamber of Small Business Award. And I'm hoping that you could just talk us through and share a little bit about how you strategized to pivot your business, especially, I mentioned wine tasting and things. Some of those things are really challenging to do during a pandemic.
Well, thank you so much for the congrats. I don't think we were the most surprised of anybody to win that. We were in the green room during the online event. And when they said our name, we were mid chat and we both were like, what? So we were completely shocked to win that award, but obviously so thankful. I subscribe to a really great online newsletter called The Heretic, actually, which is all about being 10 steps ahead in business. So while you are running your business, a part of your brain does need to be picking up all of the little micro, the little things we're seeing in the distance in a very micro level that are coming towards us about how business is changing. And a lot of people said to us about how lucky the Urban Grape had been to be able to pivot so quickly when the pandemic started. But the reality was that there were a lot of indicators about how business was changing before the pandemic that we had already put into place. So we had already strengthened our whole e-commerce and online platform. We had already started to think about how we could change our events to diversify who could be at our events, because not everyone was able to get to our store. And we knew that we wanted to be giving wine education to people wherever they were. We had already thought of the Urban Grapevine Studies Award for students of color. We had already started the conversation with BU. We knew that we needed that pipeline for creating access in the wine industry. So a lot of the things that people saw that we really hit the ground running with when the pandemic happened, we had actually already had in the pipeline for about a year. And it was just a real confluence of events that allowed us to move forward with such strength when the pandemic hit. And I do think it's because a lot of the things that got fast forwarded during the pandemic were actually starting before the pandemic. It's just that as small businesses, we're always so flat out that we don't always take the time to see the new trends. So I think that that is more than any of the specifics of how we pivoted or what we pivoted to. It was the fact that we were ready to pivot because we're always thinking about how to be innovative and how to think a few years ahead that made us really ready to rise to the challenge of that moment. I think now 2 years into it, that's the biggest takeaway.
Yeah. So I want to see if we could stay here just for a moment. And I know I've been asking you questions about sort of your journey and your team. And coming back on some of your words, this is really open for all of you, especially as we're talking about things like burnout during the pandemic, sort of pivots. And I love that you were able to accelerate strategy and things that are already in your pipeline. I think a lot of successful businesses, have a similar story or followed something new and really want to unpack that. But for all of us, all of our teams, we are only as good as our people. This notion of, culture. I'm wondering if you could just share with us, what do you do for your teams to do this rest and recharge, and a little more to drill into what Anna was talking about earlier. What are you doing for yourselves? And let's see if we can start with you, Nia.
I think about how the restaurant industry in particular, we're on when mostly everyone else is off, right? So you're getting off at 5, we're starting at 5 because we're going to make your night well. You're off for holidays and you're coming to dine during those same holidays. And our industry, I think, is historic for always missing out on those special moments. And I used to work 96 hours a week in a restaurant, and, every single holiday and birthday I was there. And I think as an adult, I was able to really say, I don't really want that experience for my team. It might be something that they've come to expect because they've heard about it, but I just feel like it was my opportunity to kind of change that culture. Additionally, taking my corporate experience, I realized that team meetings are essential, and not just the ones before a shift starts, and not just the ones after a shift when we're trying to, kind of rectify some issues. And so something that's been a part of my model here from day one was at our monthly check-in, where everybody from front, back, management, and now 2 locations gathers together for us to talk about in an open space how the business is doing. I feel like when your team knows more about than just what the special is for that evening, but how we, did with numbers and how we might be doing with waste costs. And, you might assume that either it's above some and or they may not want to know, but truthfully, they found it very valuable to understand, like, okay, great. I understand how, my 8-hour shift is going to affect the business over the next 30 days. And with that, they would also have an opportunity to contribute suggestions. I say that my first customer is, in fact, my team. You're the ones who are, selling our product, who are making our house a home. And therefore, their feedback is what I have to listen to first. So again, with those team meetings, they're able to one, speak to the house about, things that they think could be of improvement. They're also able to encourage one another, as well as teach one another in those spaces. And so I found that to be something that was great. During the pandemic specifically, I remember our team going down to 6 people for 6 months. And that's 6 people running 4 different shifts, 12-hour shifts, and that's all we could do. At the end of 16-month run, We hit last August and we did something like that was really non-traditional. We shut down. We shut down because it was at that point we had gotten enough ramp up. We actually never closed at the start of the pandemic. We immediately, 3 days later, switched over to takeout only. And similar to Hadley, having had some of these things already teed up in the background for downtime, we weren't among the folks who were trying to get that call into Uber Eats and Grubhub. We were already signed up. So that significantly helped our business. So with that kind of like forecasting and forethought, we were able to take that month to give everybody a recharge, so from team meetings to understanding and really looking around. I just had a meeting last week. And they're like, Nia, we think we're getting burnt out again. And that's because hiring on and going back into full service. Remember, went from takeout to semi-full, but now we're in full service, and it takes a lot to deliver on what we, our brand of hospitality. And we haven't really met the employment load yet. And so, I have to listen to that. And so, Valentine's Day was a really big day for a lot of different restaurants who don't typically open on Mondays. They opened especially yesterday because it was Valentine's Day. And we planned on it, but I had to listen to the team. The team said, listen, if you make us come in that one extra day, we may not come in the next 3. And I doubt they'll ever do that, right? But I just had to listen and, give everybody that moment that they needed to breathe, knowing that we had an opportunity to make some, headway in the last few weeks.
So many insights there. Would anyone like to add on how are you supporting your team during this time, keeping yourselves as sane? Because there was so much there that I heard from you, Nia, especially your last on listening and responding to your team. I love it. Push them one more day. You may lose them for 3. And honestly, you make me rethink what I'm doing with my life. I would love if someone said, Donna, you look burnt out. You can take the entire month of August off. That was fantastic. So we're going to come back to that one. And we have a question from the audience, and we'll come back to some of those in audience. If you have other questions, please don't hold back. And from our audience, what are some of the biggest barriers and toughest challenges you've faced in the growth stage of your business, and how do you break through to achieve success?
I can jump in because we are in a massive growth stage right now, and it's probably the most stressful thing we have ever done. We're right on the cusp of announcing a bunch of different changes and projects and things like that. But it's an incredibly stressful, growth is incredibly stressful, and you really need to make sure that you have the financial runway. You need to make sure that you have the correct employees in place. I think that what we've done, or what we are doing differently this time as opposed to when we first opened and were, growing the business then, is that we've come to understand that we can't do it all. Exactly what Anna was saying in the beginning. We have to put the people around us to support the work we're doing, even if it does cause a temporary financial strain, because we cannot be creative and clear thinkers and leaders unless we have a good team around us. So that's something that we have really done differently this time than when we first started the business. And I think that our growth is amplified because of that. Because we are not, running the delivery trucks ourselves and stocking everything ourselves and also asking for money and also writing business plans. We are really sitting at the top of the thought plan to move the growth forward, as opposed to trying to do all the work ourselves. And I think that's a really important thing that I've learned this time around, that I wish I'd known then.
That's fantastic. Anyone else want to share any insights on how close that growth stage?
Yeah, I'll certainly share. And Hadley, you made some amazing points. So for me, I work more in a consulting role, in a project-based role. So as I mentioned, I try to not take on more to overload my team. Just based on capacity and what we can handle. So a lot of times we want to take on the work because we think we can do the work, but there's so many different areas and needs to run a business and operate a business the right way. And a lot of times we either get this, information from, workshops and seminars and professional developments like this, or otherwise we learn through experience. And I've learned through both. So I'm at a place where my business is always growing, but I am aware and I'm of the mindset that I want to keep a steady business and move upward and not take any steps backward. So doing it and strategically planning it the right way. And a lot of times that means not taking on what you think you might be able to handle if you don't have the proper structure in place. And as Hadley said, also it takes a team. As entrepreneurs and small business owners, because it's our baby, we want to get involved in everything. We have to trust our team and those that we hire and have around us, that they're going to be able to work at their pace, but also get the work done. And also being a mom, I know what it's like, so I try to be transparent. I also have a daughter who has autism, so I've been raising her for 26 years and balancing that. So I'm always transparent. I try to communicate with my team and those and my clients so that they're aware of any challenges that I'm dealing with. And I think that opens the door for them to be able to communicate better with me in regards to where they are and what they can do.
Wonderful. And trusting the team and building and being transparent. I had two questions I really want to get in, but we also have a great question from the audience that I want to get to. Do you think there's a difference in attracting sponsors and investment? Sponsorship and investments, women versus men in the same position. So if you were a male in your position, do you think you would attract more sponsors or investment, or is it flipped the other way around? I see your head shaking, Natalie, and I'm wondering, did you not understand the question, or you have a thought?
I understand. I definitely understand the question. There's just no way that women attract more investment money than men, period, end of sentence, ever. Do I think it's gotten a little bit better? Sure. I think that people are trying to be more thoughtful with their investment money, but talk to any female entrepreneur and you will hear a story of the struggle of finding the money to grow a business, and talk to any entrepreneur of color and you'll hear the same story. And I think that we just don't have the networks. And while we can be intentional about fixing that, and certainly my husband and I are intentional about fixing our networks and talking to people with money and putting ourselves in those circles and having the conversations about how to grow, we still always find ourselves coming back to putting the money in ourselves, because at the end of the day, it's just easier. And I think that has to stop. That really has to be something that globally, obviously, but in Boston, we have to get so much better about seeking out really fantastic businesses owned by women, owned by people of color, and investing more money into them and helping them grow.
Hear, hear. Anything to add on that one? Because I did want to have a conversation about access to capital and some of the challenges.
Sure, I'll speak a little bit about that, and some of you on the call probably have heard our stories with the Mavens Conference It's our 10th year, and being a conference primarily for women of color and advancing women of color, and starting it 10 years ago, you can imagine what type of traction we got in Boston. It was little to none other than our community and a couple of allies that wanted to be at the table. But fast forward, we kept pounding on the doors, and the sponsors started coming in, I would say 5 years ago. But it took for me to continuously speak up. And if it was not for those individuals that saw something in the conference and the importance in, people like Nia at Darrow's even being a sponsor and herself being a small business, because we would go to larger sponsors, larger corporations, and they did not see the value 10 years ago of sponsoring a conference for women of color. And then in 2018, we took the conference globally and did 5 cities. And we heard similar stories in each city, but we didn't give up because I knew the importance of it and was very grateful for those that supported and continue to support. And, anything like Hallie said, if it's something you're passionate about, as Nia said, and there's a need and a value for it, you're going to get up and do it. And that's what we did with A Maven's World. And it's come a long way in the 10 years, but we have a long way to go. We do reach about 1,000 women in Boston prior to it going virtually. But, we want to hit those 5,000 and 10,000 numbers like the other conferences are hitting in the Boston area. I think it's important for us to do that, and we'll continue to work on our end.
Thank you, Anna. And, we research on this topic, speak on this topic, and I know the road can be long. I had the pleasure of being on a panel with you, Nia, and this came up, and the story you shared was one of the most encouraging things that gave me hope, particularly for small businesses and your relationship with Toast. And I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about that story in accessing capital.
Absolutely. For me, it was how do you first ask the question? And I think that's kind of one of the toughest things when you have this idea and you want to move forward with something and you realize that your capital may not meet the need that you have, is really just asking and where to go for it. Going to the bank, I was able to, filter out a really good relationship there. But interestingly enough, it actually took 2 cosigns and just verbally from 2 male entrepreneurs that said, no, I really respect her work and she does good work. So you should maybe, consider her, right? So I already needed that piece of the cosign to even get further, right? But it didn't discourage me because, to me, I was just encouraged by the fact that, I'm in this space and now I have the opportunity to present and prove myself. And so, with organizations like Toast, I found it encouraging that, they were really ahead of the game, I think in 2020 with financial backing for organizations because they had figured out another way to do it. Again, restaurants are pretty tricky. They're pretty risky. Most people are not going to invest in a startup. They want you to have some kind of proven ability. But with Toast, they made it so that they could look at your sales and see that even after after a year's time, you had some, good traction. Your numbers were going in the right way. You were, meeting the certain percentages that you needed, to really operate a good or financially sound business so that they would then lend to you against that. Whereas banks want to see 3 to 5 years of that kind of history and financial records to then maybe approve you for a line of credit. So when I look at businesses or, organizations like Toast, I'm really inspired to make that one of my partners, right? And to speak on their behalf. And I think that's what's really important. One of my things during the pandemic with the Black Hospitality Coalition was really calling out banking institutions who were okay with taking our deposits, but were not okay with giving us small loans. I felt like that was a problem. I felt like it was not all right to have the ATM in my community, but I've never seen an investment truly in any of the Main Street businesses within that same community. And so, there have been institutions who have stepped up to the plate, Eastern Bank, Berkshire Bank, to say, you know what, you're right. And it's time for us to make sure that we're making those commitments, not just in name, but also in the dollar sound.
Well, thank you. And love that there are others who do recognize the value where you can go and move forward with your business. We have 2 questions from the audience that, okay, there's more, but at least 2 I think we can get to. We'll try and get to at least 3 before someone starts to give us the hook via chat. So there is someone who moved back to Boston during the pandemic She has a nail polish brand, and she is very intentional. So one, she's looking for a mentor, and really looking to grow her business here in Boston. And she is looking for any advice that you guys might have on how she can get started.
I'll just jump right in there, and Hadley and Anna will talk about it. It's definitely about your network. I think that when you start to include people who are not just the everyday people that you've been talking to, and really intentionally look to expand it, you're going to find resources and hear gems that you never expected. And through that, you find out new organizations that have money, or that they're accelerator programs, which I also encourage people to get into. And additionally, we talked about it a little bit earlier, is that mentor. And it doesn't have to be one mentor. You might need to find several mentors to really address the different things that you need, whether it's how do I get my finances in order? There might be a mentor for that. And, how do I really focus on a marketing plan that is going to catapult my business? Then there might be a particular mentor for that. And it's okay. I think I have 3 right now, 2 that I check in with weekly to make sure that I'm on point, but as well as always have an opportunity to just ask them a question when I'm feeling like I hit that, rough spot. And so, again, we always talk about there not being a dumb question. I also say that there's never too many questions, and ask them all. So.
Absolutely. We have someone looking to take the plunge and trying to make a decision of when can they leave their 9-to-5 job. When can you make that tradition? Like, what needs to happen before you can go start your small business or pursue whatever, bring your big idea to life?
I think that I'd be really interested to hear what Nia and Anna think about this. But I think that although we survived and we were fine, we left our jobs with not enough personal capital. We did not have enough of the safety net. And we had some terrifying years in there. And I think looking back, we both wish that we had given ourselves either that we had asked for more money in our original loan so that we could bridge ourselves to when the business started making money, or that we had put a little bit more in the bank. We were mostly self-funded from the beginning for quite a while until we were able to get a bank loan. So I do think that you want to take the plunge. If you wait and wait and wait, you'll never do it. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you've got 6 months, 8 months, whatever feels comfortable to you, because your business will likely not start turning a profit right away. And you don't want to get caught up on those bills and not be able to pay yourselves. We didn't pay ourselves for years, and I don't recommend that to anybody.
I would say those are some great questions, and so many things went through my mind with both of those questions that you posed. They do say it normally takes 3 years for a business to see a profit. So I'll just throw that out there. There's also a saying, to motivate people, do it scared. I would add, do it scared, but don't do it broke. A business is supposed to make money. Saying that, you have to know your numbers. I have to add that in, and you have to know them daily, weekly, so that you can pay attention and not delve too much into your personal funds. As Hadley said, you want to try to get grants. You want to try to get those loans, grants first if you can, because loans have to be paid back. It's possible to be done, but you want to be smart about it, because if you're not doing well personally, it's going to reflect in your business. And your business is not going to do well. So those are a couple of things that came to mind. Do it scared, but don't do it broke. Business is supposed to make money, and you probably are not going to see a profit if you do in a couple of years. So how are you going to live and survive, just to be candid about it? So, yes, we're passionate about our businesses as entrepreneurs, but we also have to be very smart about it.
Yes. I have a question, since I think you guys have given some great advice on, I love that you can be scared. I wrote but not broke. Grants, loans. I think you guys have mentioned accelerators, making sure the money that you're raising, you have a long enough cash flow, since it might take you 3 years to actually be profitable. Wanted to think about sort of just the Greater Boston Chamber in Boston and the Commonwealth as a whole. So yes, thank you, Chamber, for pulling together this fantastic panel. But you started to touch upon sort of the ecosystem when we were talking about access to capital. What more can the ecosystem do to support that talent pipeline that all of you will continue to need and to thrive as you continue to grow your businesses? Any thoughts?
I'll jump in, and it's actually about both sides of the coin, because when Nia was talking about the importance of her relationship with Toast and things like that, I was thinking about how probably all three of us would say that our customers are the bread and butter. They're who keep the lights on. They're who keep the salaries paid. But it's those corporate partnerships that move the needle for your company, that allow you to grow, that allow you to give bonuses, have new dreams, things like that. So when a corporation the size of Toast or some of the other incredible big businesses that we have here in Boston decides to do all of their gifting locally through a place like the Urban Grape, or do events with Nia, with us, sponsor the Maven Conference. That's how the needle gets moved for us. And I think it's really important to always be talking about that. I always like to remind larger corporations that small businesses depend on you in a variety of ways. And then in terms of keeping the pipeline open, I think that there are a lot of programs right now, like the Urban Grape Wine Studies Award for students of color, that are trying to use really creative ways to create access to industries for people that have previously not seen themselves represented in those industries. And we cannot do this work without corporate partners. We can't do this work without people investing in that for us to create those pipelines. So at the end of the day, while small businesses like to pretend we can do it all on our own, we do need those strong corporate partners to keep us going.
That's fantastic, Hallie. So much information there, and I will circle back. I am looking at the time, and I know there are so many questions in the audience that we didn't get to. And the spirit of community, please, if you have not already reached out to our panelists on LinkedIn or are trying to figure out ways that you can network with them in the spirit of networking, please reach out, please connect, and stay in touch. For our panelists, I have a question, and you guys know this one is coming. Thinking about your career journey from making the decision to sort of jump in and start this journey to thinking about your strategic growth and your study as you continue to scale. Some say it would be a transformation from sort of your early life to your current. And so help us understand through music. Yes, this is my version of my own little talk show. What is the song that would sort of define you in your early life at the beginning of this journey? And what is the song that would define you now as you've gone through this transformation? And I will start with you, Anna.
Awesome. Well, in the spirit of Black History Month, I will say the song for me as a youth would be Young, Gifted, and Black by Nina Simone. And today I would love to say, the season is don't worry, be happy. but I can't confidently say that. I would say a change is going to come.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's so great. I'll go right after that, only because I think my youth, it was probably a change is going to come. And, 44 years later from when that song came out, Ain't No Stopping Us Now by Patton and Whitehead is where I'm at.
I know. Nice.
Well, mine, I was feeling inspired after watching Mary J at the Super Bowl. So my early one is Real Love, always that seeking of who outside of myself was going to validate me and make me feel like I was truly loved. And then growing up and realizing that I really have everything that I need right inside of myself. So my current Mary J song would be Take Me As I Am.
Okay, ladies, I am so incredibly inspired right now on your songs. I have some new stuff for my playlist. I hope all of you have some new stuff for your playlist. And also so many lessons from listening to podcasts as we look to center this newsletter on Hectic, putting away our talk about multitasking and being multi-threaded to start thinking about we're going to undercommit and over-deliver. How do we get started and really thinking about sort of accelerating our pipeline, a message to all of our corporate partners out there on how do you want to support, thinking about ways that you can support small businesses from sponsorship to capital to gifting, every step of the way. So many insights from our amazing panelists. I would like to thank each and every one of you for taking the time and joining us today. And Susan, I will turn it over to you. Thank you.
Oh, yay. That was so great. I'm sure the audience agrees. Thank you, Nia, Anna, Hadley, and Donna for facilitating such a great conversation. I'll have to take under advisement the word multitasking and striking that from my language. I have already struck the word just, but I think multitask probably goes in there. I loved the comments about growth needing the team mindset, right? There is no I in team, and you all spoke to that so beautifully. And I found myself sitting here thinking kind of the cool thing about women is our lessons are as much about being good humans as they are about being successful business owners or entrepreneurs or any other thing. So one of the other things that I took away, and I actually haven't thought about this, I've been an entrepreneur and a professor and all those things around small business and entrepreneurship for so long, but entrepreneurs solve problems. And you were talking about, you couldn't go out and whether it was the conference, right? And you needed sponsorship. So you sponsored each other. Right? We solved our own problem by finding ourselves our own sponsors in our community. And that's just such the demonstration of entrepreneurship. Donna didn't ask me, but my song is Ain't No Mountain High Enough. So my kids get upset because I tell them I want them to play that at my funeral. And they're like, Mom, they're in their late 20s now and they're still horrified. I'm like, that is I'll be there. So, thank you. And now just a reminder about the Chamber and the Women's Network. We have the Pinnacle Awards coming up. We pushed it back to March 3rd and 4th. We have workshops on the 3rd and the Pinnacle Awards on the 4th. So that we could be together in person. We have amazing honorees, as you've heard a little bit about, and there's still some tickets and sponsorships available, but we have over 800 people already registered. So that tells you something about where we're at as a community. You can learn more at bostonchamber.com. And I also want to thank Michelle and MFS for making all of this possible. It's really, really important that we do have those corporate sponsorships where we can, because that's what enables us to pull people like all of you together to model the behavior and make it possible. Nia, you said you'd rather have someone come by and chat with you, but by doing this, right, it all seems possible. So for everybody out there, I'm sure I speak for you when I say thank you to all of you. It's been fabulous.